Anyways, I just wanted to say hello. Thank you so much for taking time out of your crazy busy schedule to talk to me today. I'm so thrilled. I love your new song. Oh my God, I'm kind of tripping on it. I had the name. I've
Start
been
again. Oh, was it start
Yes,
again?
Start Again.
Yes.
I've been listening to it like so much that I didn't even get time to like review like when you went where you went to music school, like any of your backstory. I love that song so much. It's just I've been married 14 years and after having kids, I relate to all the things in it, like the fire, and I want to get to that. Obviously, that's what's going on right now. But I think some of our listeners, some people don't really know your backstory. You're obviously a quadruple threat. You have the voice, the songwriting, the piano, the guitar. Um, I guess other instruments. I don't know. Do you play other instruments?
No, those are my main instruments. Just me and the guitar and the piano go on tour together.
So, and you sound like you have some kind of intense opera training, and wow, so much to get into. How did you get started on your path to being a musician?
Well, I grew up in a really musical house. My dad grew up in a musical house too. So my grandfather was an army band leader, and music was always in their house. So my dad thought that was, he just passed that on to me and my brother. And so I grew up always playing music, loving music. And then I had this spark of a moment that where I fell in love with songwriting when I listened to Joni Mitchell. And that just changed everything for me. And that's when I realized I wanted to study songwriting. I wanted to be a great songwriter instead of just, I loved singing. That was my strength at the time. And so I ended up going to school. I was like, I want to tour nonstop unless I get into Berklee College of Music. And luckily I got in because I needed those tools more than I ever could have imagined that I needed them.
Did you go for vocals or did you go for business? What did you go for?
Well, you have to pick a primary instrument. So mine was voice, but
Voice.
my major was in songwriting. So I did get to geek out on songwriting like I always wanted to.
That's so awesome. So you did the 4-year traditional program in Boston and at
Yes.
Berkeley. Nice.
Yes.
Cool. And you were, I'm sorry, where did you say you were from? That by so you went to Boston by way of
Yes, by Philadelphia. I grew up
Philadelphia.
outside of Philly. Yeah.
Nice. And then how did you get to Nashville?
Well, when I graduated from college, I knew that I wanted to be in a musical city. And so I lived in New York City for a couple months. I always joke that like I've been driving a minivan since I could drive. And I always joke that when I lived in New York City, I paid more in parking violations than I did in rent. And it just became uh, impossible as a touring musician to live there. So I decided to move back to Boston and regroup and decide where to move. And that's when I landed on Nashville. And I've been there since 2011.
Wow, that's great. That's a substantial amount of time to sort of soak into the ecosystem of Nashville, which is a bit different from New York.
Yeah.
I lived in Brooklyn for 4 years, and
Uh-huh.
whenever I visit, my cousin Anna Wilson is a musician in Nashville, and whenever I visit there and talk to other musicians there, I feel like it's kind of night and day. And
Yeah.
how did you? So what do you do? Like when I watch the show Nashville, like it seems like everyone just goes to the Bluebird and then they're in. But I'm sure it's more complicated than that.
I wish that was how it worked. I mean, the Bluebird is amazing. I love playing there,
Yeah.
but I've played there countless times and never been quote unquote discovered. But I guess I did kind of have a discovery moment in Nashville when I first moved here. So I moved here and knew I wanted to make a record with some of the greatest musicians that live here. And so I launched a Kickstarter. I made a record here. It was all done independently. And then I happened to play like a board meeting for a label, and I got signed. It was wild. Very shortly after making that record and moving here. So all the dreams that I had for Nashville started coming true. And that was a wave that I rode for a couple years until it crashed. You know, it's kind of a long story,
Well, I
but
do want to get into that because I'm looking. There's a story around your last LP, Funeral for My Past,
Mhm.
and a big part of that story is about you kind of deciding to pave your own way, which ultimately
Mhm.
led to that Kickstarter campaign. Can
Yeah.
you take me back to that initial period?
Yeah, so I had done two records with this label, and when it was time for me to do my third, I was really excited about the batch of songs. I was really excited to work with Grammy nominated producer Paul Moak for the first time. And we put together a record that we were so proud of. And when I handed it in, the people at the label had signed me had just left. And so when I handed my record in, the people that believed in me and had championed me were no longer there, and I got dropped. And they basically said, if you want to release this record, we'll give it to you if you buy it back from us. Which, I mean, for a lot of people that aren't in the industry, they're like, that's terrible. But there is a plus side. The plus side is that I was given the opportunity to buy it back. I just unfortunately didn't have the funds to do so. So I was really torn about what to do and ended up launching a Kickstarter to buy back that record. And it's just kind of a crazy full circle moment because I launched a Kickstarter. My fans helped me make a record that got me a record deal, and then they helped me get out of the record deal. Um, so I guess technically the label was only really financially behind one album now that I think about it. It's so weird. Um, but yeah, my fans made me the fourth most funded solo female musician in Kickstarter history. So it changed my life, and I've been independent ever since.
So there was so when the management changed and like these are your
Mhm.
songs, did they have a different creative direction in mind, I'm assuming them or
No,
just
no. There was literally no explanation. I will never know. The people that dropped me are no longer there, and it turns out that I was the first of a few ladies who were dropped around that time. So
none.
it was like a rough couple of years for the Nashville female singer-songwriter community in that sense, but no reason, and it's been my most popular record to date. So it was really that was really like cool validation to know that the people that listen to my music were were supportive of the album.
Before I get into the music itself, I'd love to like I think the Kickstarter thing is so fascinating. It's kind of a weird divisive topic. I know you had some initial hesitancies.
Yeah.
Why is that? Why did where were what were you feeling around that and why did you decide to go for it and how?
Yeah. Well, I think I felt a little bit of embarrassment and um because I had launched a Kickstarter that got me into this record deal and I didn't see myself having to go back to that spot where I needed so much support. And so it was very humbling. And yeah, I just felt a little bit embarrassed. But my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, he encouraged me to do it. And he's like, your people are going to stand beside you in this. And I think it was like the first couple hours, the campaign had raised $45,000, and I was just, crying, sitting in our living room, just crying, and just couldn't believe um, that it was true that people were willing to support me and help me out in
Did
this
you
tough
you
moment.
so you did some shows in return for their investment? I saw something about some house concerts and stuff like
Oh
that. Like
yeah.
you got to give a little something special. You can't just be like, "Well, I need money for funds." You have to be like,
Oh
"Listen, you're
yeah.
going to get something exclusive out of this." So how do you make the decision on like what's speaking to your fans in terms of
Yeah, 100%. I did custom songs, which I love writing custom songs in general, but I did a huge batch of those for Kickstarter backers. I did house concerts. I'd travel to anybody in the US if they wanted to have a house concert. And I mean, and then I just did a lot of stuff that was, related to the record, like handwritten lyrics and signed CDs, vinyl, stickers, all the things. Unlike my first Kickstarter, I did not do t-shirts because, getting 1,300 t-shirts packaged and the right size to every person is quite complicated,
Oh
and I needed
yes.
to keep it simple. So, yeah,
I
there were a lot
mean,
of
no,
different
my
things in
band,
there.
yeah, I agree. Like we've just decided to sell t-shirts at live shows where like
Yeah,
it's more complicated because then if people get the wrong size and they want to return it, then it's just all this extra time in your life. It's hard.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Note on merch. Well, that's so inspiring. Because like there's a saying that if you have faith, like you'll get taken care of, but still it is a
Mhm.
huge leap of faith to be like, listen, this is the situation I'm in, but I thank you for believing in my music. I believe in my music, and then the miracle
Yeah,
happened. So that's just really
yeah.
that's so exciting that that happened for you. And
I
that
think
was
too, I think the
during the
biggest
pandemic, right?
lesson,
What?
sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that happened also with like the pandemic drama going on, and then yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think the biggest lesson for me as somebody who was on a label and is now no longer on a label, I felt very rejected by the people in charge there at the end. And then I had this realization where I was like, wait a minute. I make the thing that this label needs to survive. So even though, they dropped me, I still have the thing essentially that they run on. So I've got the goods. I just need to go do what I need to do with it. And so now I've built my whole team just by myself, and um, just it seems to be running better than a record label. So,
I mean, that's such an
everything
interesting
happens for a reason.
conversation because, like, did you hear what Chappell Roan said at her Grammy speech
Yes.
the other night? People think that there's this misnomer, like, that once you get signed by a label, that, like, all the problems go away. But, like,
Hmm.
you're still a contractor, right?
Hmm.
It's like the same as me being a freelance writer. You've got to, like, you still have to take care of your health. You're this,
Hmm.
you're that. And if you're the workhorse, the reason that the label's making money, sure, they're investing in you, but what do you get out of it? Like, what
Hmm.
insurance is there? So
Hmm.
what you're saying is really just sort of underscores the point that maybe they need to give a little back. The
Yeah.
industry needs to give back because you can't just create for nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Spotify needs to pay artists fairly. It's absolutely terrible.
Oh my God, we could have another
Um,
like hour-long
yeah.
conversation about this. Oh my
It's
gosh.
just insanity. Insanity. Yeah.
So let's talk about obviously Start Again and your new album. Is that gonna be the title of the album, or that's just the single that came out this week?
The single is Start Again. The album's called New Life.
Nice, new life. And that's the theme of it, right? So you
Yes.
are a mom now. Tell me about the last 5 years and how your life has changed and these songs came together.
Oh man, it's been a massive change. My daughter is 2.5, and I always wanted to be a mom, always wanted to be a musician. So it was always something that I thought is like, how am I going to end up balancing mom and musician? And I'm so lucky that I've been able to do that, especially because I have this amazing husband who holds down the fort while I tour, or they come with me, and uh, it's so much fun. It's so much stress and so much fun. But having a child has just shifted the way that I see the world, the way that I feel the world, and it definitely, had a huge impact on what I write about and why I write and how I want these songs to land on people and what I want to make people feel. I joke that I built a career on writing songs about my failed love life, and that when I got happy, I honestly was worried. Like, what am I going to write about? But there's so many things to write about, especially this day and age that we live in. There's so many pain points, and so many beautiful things too. And I think that's the thing that I've learned as a songwriter is how to write from a place of gratitude, and not be. I think I was always like scared of being trite, and
Mhm.
now it's just learning to write from a place of two things can be true at the same time. Like, I'm heartbroken at the state of the world, and also I'm so grateful for the life that I have.
Well, that's real honesty. That's authenticity.
Yeah.
There's no formula for that. But it is
Yeah.
interesting because I've had this blog forever and I interview moms all the time and dads, and they say the same thing that once the world becomes not about you, like some of the sort of the like there's some of the angstiness kind of dissipates at least temporarily,
Hmm.
but you're just the way you think about things is just kind of shifts.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, and yeah, all those things can be true. And, the state of the world is crazy, but there is beauty in that.
Hmm.
So can you tell me about some of the other songs? Like, obviously, that's my favorite is Start Again right now because I've just, I feel it so deeply because it's so hard to have that spark and that sizzle when you've been married and then you have this kid come into your life and it's sort of like,
Yeah.
and it doesn't get easier, by the way, like spoiler alert, it just because by the
Great.
way, yeah, my kids are 10 and 12 and they go to bed at 10. Like, there's not that 2 hour window to order sushi and make out with my husband. I'm just being
Yeah, that's where we're at right now. Is she goes to bed at 7:30, and then we,
Yep.
like, kind of
Yeah. Yeah, you
decompress.
gotta keep the world shifts. Like just when you're like, I got this, it's
Yeah.
like it's all over. But I want to talk about some of the other songs in your album. Can you take me through the first couple of singles? I think that came out in late 24.
Yeah, yeah. So actually, the first single that came out is called More Than Ever, and that's actually
Oh,
kind of
that
what I
is.
was just thinking about in my mind when I was saying that two things can be true, that you can be so grateful and also so heartbroken by the state of the world. That is how I would sum up that song. And that's the first song that I wrote after my daughter was born, and I just sat on my front porch and just lost it, you know. Of course, it had to be outside the house because I couldn't think clearly inside the house. And then the second single that came out is a song that I wrote many years ago that really just resonated with me at this point in my life. It's called Wake You Up. And it's a song about just like wanting to wake somebody up and wake them up to the joy of their lives if they can just be present for a moment. And I struggled a lot postpartum with anxiety and depression. And so having this song that I could sing every night, that's a reminder to wake up and be here and enjoy the now, is something that I wanted for myself, but also something that I wanted to sing and share with others. So that was a really important song to put on the record for me.
It sounds like a nightly gratitude list or like a lullaby to the self. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then the third single I think it was Start
Yeah.
Again. Yeah.
Yep.
And I wrote this is another one that I wrote years ago. I wasn't married. I had just probably started dating my husband at the time. And I wrote the song with Isaac Fox, and I just was I love singing the song. It's like kind of, you know, it's got this Spanish feel, and then Paul Milk played this insanely, you know, insane guitar solo. It's so delicious. That I don't know, this song really felt like it resonated with me again at this point in my life, and it was important to put on the record. And I haven't announced this yet, but we're going to be putting a music video out for this song, so I'm really excited to
Nice.
just, yeah, I think it's such a dynamic performance with Paul's guitar. I mean, I'm like, I want to build a music video just around the guitar solo. So
How do
I'm
you
excited.
find your people? Because as a in a band, it's I just like looked for people who wanted parents who wanted to be in a punk band. That's what I do. I
I
have an
love
all
that.
parent punk band. We have 10 kids. But finding solo players is a little bit. I don't know if is it the same? Do you just sort of put it out there and meet people, and you're like, let's keep jamming, or
Yeah, I tour solo. It's just me. But when I make a record, Paul produced the record, and he's an amazing guitar player, and so it was a no-brainer to have him on this song. So,
nice.
and he helped me pick the bandmates. But they also played on the last record that I made with Paul, and we had such a great time. There was such a great chemistry, and so I used the same band.
That's so cool. So, what kind of gear do you bring with you on tour? Like, do you have a favorite brand or two, or?
I think that yes, I have Sennheiser microphones that I love. Before I was using Sennheiser, I was using Neumann's. Um, I like to have um, I like to have a really clear vocal sound. It's really important to me, and I also it's really important to me to have a really good capo. I know that sounds so funny, but the G7 capos, like if I don't have that during my show, it's not going to be right. It saves so much time every time I put it on. It keeps the intonation good. That's so important to me. And then if I'm traveling not by plane, I take an Avalon preamp for my acoustic guitars. Since it's just me and my acoustic guitars and a piano, it's important to me that my guitars sound really delicious.
Mhm.
And so I take that with me too.
Nice, nice. So your tour is in progress. You're going
Yes.
through. Tell me about like what do the next couple months look like? So like
Yeah.
March, April.
I'm going to be all of February. I'll be on the West Coast. I'll be doing California, Washington, Oregon, and then going to Colorado. And then for all of March, I'm going to be doing the East Coast tour, which is where I'm from. So there's like twice as many shows, all the way from, gosh, I could think the most, well, this summer it will be as north as Maine, all the way down to Virginia. So there'll be about 35 shows this year. So
Are your husband and
if I'm
daughter
in the
coming?
Yes, March they'll be with me. It's going to be an adventure.
But the day to day with mom life. I'd like to talk about like what's your time like? Like what's your downtime like? Do you have to sneak in guitar like between naps and
Yes.
how does that work with your new workflow? Do you have to like hide in a closet to write your songs?
Yes, I basically have to, like when she was young, when I would play, it would make her cry. And I had this theory that I like traumatized her from playing guitar while I was pregnant. I was like, oh no, she hates music. Luckily now she loves music and she likes to sing all the time. But lately what I do is I actually write while she's playing in front of me or she's coloring. I'll just sit on my chair and she'll create her mess and I'll just sing and I'll know it's good if she starts singing it back to me. I'm like, oh, it's catchy enough that she's getting it.
So
So
sweet.
I do that can only last for like little, like 20-minute windows. But other than that, it's when I'm on the road. Now I find a lot of like calm in the travel of the road.
Mhm.
And or yeah, after she goes to sleep, if I can sneak in a few minutes.
Yeah, no, that's great. It's all about those little moments, like
Yeah.
for sure. And the one thing I want to talk to you about, it's a little personal. I hadn't planned on this, but I was looking at your Instagram and I have to say I appreciate your nails, your guitar nails posts. So listen, I have this song I wrote called Ain't No Man Gonna Like My Hands. You can see my hands. They are just so short. It's like my calluses. That's what I
Yeah.
got. And it was funny when I was talking to Britt Lightning of Vixen, she's like, to do pinched harmonics, I need an acrylic nail. So, and you have this whole post like that you use for acrylic nails. Can you tell
Yes.
us about that? Like, what are your nails like, and how did you discover this
Yes.
finger picking nail trick?
Yeah, I would, well, I'll show them to you, but they're not done. I just had my middle finger one fall off.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But this is what a normal guitar nail is for me. And I have my 40. I don't do my pinky nail because it hits my acoustic guitar and the
Yeah.
microphone picks it up. So I don't even waste the $5 every 2 weeks on that. But I got started doing this because I had a teacher in college, Abby, who taught me about Travis finger picking, and she said, "Listen, you're going to get a better sound if you have a little bit of nail. And since you don't have a nail, I want you to get acrylic nails." And honestly, she would say these are a little bit too long. She would want it just to be past the tip of my finger. But I fell in love with doing it, and then I realized I could use them as my pick. So I don't use a pick. These are my picks. And I also have dabbled in like putting gel nail polish on them, and it just, the gel nail polish doesn't sound as good. It's so weird.
And this is just your
But
right
yeah,
hand. So,
just my right hand.
okay.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I did a whole post about it. It was the biggest Instagram post I've ever had and TikTok post. I was like,
Because no one
really? I'm going to
talks
talk about
about
my
that.
nails?
Like, I don't know. I'm like, Guitar Player Magazine, why aren't you covering this? Like, this to me
Yeah,
seems like an urgent, like, important tip, right? I don't
yeah.
know. Maybe I'll do this. I'm gonna do that. I might be like, look, this story. I'll pitch to New York Times or something. I'll be like, this story hasn't been written. Liz Longley, she brought it to my awareness that we need to talk about our guitar nails.
I
So
think also James Taylor does it, and that made me feel a little bit less of like a weirdo for doing that.
no, you're not. I mean, it's all about the sound, and it's good because like I wouldn't have known if you didn't write that. I was just like, well, I can't
Yeah,
have nails because I have my calluses, and then my other finger doesn't have callus. My right hand doesn't have calluses, obviously, but I just, I get nervous about trying new things. So I appreciate
yeah.
that. Anyways,
Try it
well,
sometime. It's fun.
and is there anything else you'd like to talk about? Anything inspiring for other musician moms like me, especially the ones with the littles?
Oh
You'd like to
man,
share any advice?
inspiring.
Advice for like
Yes.
guitar mom hacks, piano
I
mom
think
hacks.
not a hack, but advice that, or at least what I tell myself is that I think as a mom, some people struggle with like how much time do I give myself in what I love to do, and what I have convinced myself of, or what I remind myself of daily, is they, on the airplane, they always say, put your mask on first before you put it on your kid. And for me, music is my mask. Music is my, what breathes new life into me. And so I know that I'm a better person, a better mama when I'm taking care of myself, and then I can pour into my kid, I should say. But, so that's my advice, is just keep pouring into yourself and let it trickle into your loved ones.
I love that. That's so great. It was such a pleasure talking to you and meeting you. And
Ditto. Thank
I
you
look
so much
forward
for
to
your time.
I look forward to seeing you hopefully in March.
Yes, I'll put you on the guest list.
Awesome. Thank you. Have a great one.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.